Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
April 18th, 2018.
And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
What's this you're playing? What kind of music is this? My grandfather's saying to me, my assistants think I'm actually saying this on the air. I said, well, I'm living in America now. In the year 2018, we play music like this. Where's America? What is it? What do you mean, this is music? You call this music? This is a mishmash of the mind. What music? I never heard of a thing like this. Look, great-grandfather, knock it off. Leave me alone, will you please? A plane last night, an engine blew. What's an engine? What's a plane? It's a thing. It flies in the sky. What, it's a bird? Like a chicken? On a Friday night? No. No. It flies in the air. It carries people. Have you gone crazy in the new world? What do you mean it's something that carries people? I never heard of such a thing in the world I was in. Well, great-grandfather, I'm trying to tell you something. The engine blew up in this plane, and it sucked the woman almost out of the plane, and a guy in a cowboy hat ran up and saved her. Cowboy hat? What's a cowboy hat? And the pilot, they say, has nerves of steel. What's a nerve of steel? She's a Navy pilot. What's a Navy pilot? Anyway, the fact is, if you play with this game for a while, it becomes fun to do it in several dimensions at once because it keeps you from going insane, saying lock her up and Mueller and call me three hours a day. The jet CFM 56-7B engines were made by CFM International. Listen to this. Jointly owned by General Electric and Safran Aircraft Engines of France. So these CFM engines were made in France, were they? Oh, CFM said in a statement that the CFM 567B has an outstanding safety and reliability record. Well, so the fan blade broke, and it shows signs of metal fatigue. And we have a pilot, a Navy pilot, who's like our Sully now. Lucky she was a Navy pilot who was a fighter pilot, who's married to a fighter pilot, who walked through the island and talked with passengers after they landed. Hey, do we have conversations between the cockpit and air traffic controllers? If not, get it. I want to play it in the next soundbite, where she tells them that there was a hole in the plane and someone went out. It's unbelievable. So that's a news story. But I want to go back to my main story. Which is the great-grandfather. What would my great-grandfather want for me to talk about today to millions of people? And many of you are resonating and responding to that idea. So let's go to the callers who've been holding now for an hour. Martin on on KSFO, line 1. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Michael. Thank you for my call. I'll try and make this short and sweet. I was watching a YouTube video on a person that is probably 120 degrees from us. And there you were in the right-hand column. And I clicked on that. It was a 46-minute YouTube. I watched the whole thing. This was the day before Teddy had his surgery. And I loved it. And I have a renewed respect for you and your opinions.
Now, what was the video?
I don't think I can say it on the air.
No, not the title. Oh, is that the video in Beverly Hills where I gave a speech 2 months ago?
It was the day before Teddy had his surgery.
Yeah. No, I gave a live speech to a group of conservatives. They were having lunch at the Beverly Hills Hotel, or one of the hotels, the Four Seasons, I believe. And I went down there. It was the David Horowitz's Freedom Center. Nice people. And that's the speech. It was a lot of fun. What did you see in the speech that you liked?
The whole thing, Michael. The whole thing. It should go viral.
It can't go viral because I'm not a progressive who hates America.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, every one of your...
and because I'm not on Fox News ever, I'm not known. So you can only be known if you're part of the cartel or any of your money gets kicked up to the agent who represents the cartel. He gets 10% of everyone's income. And no one discloses that. There's nothing wrong with having an agent, but you should disclose that you all share an agent and you try to destroy everybody around you who's not in the cartel. I mean, that would be obvious. That would be sharing with people, wouldn't it? You say, okay, we have an agent, we try to make a buck, and we block anyone who's not in the cartel and try to get him off the radio, keep him off television, and try to put someone in who makes the money that we get a 10% kickback up to our agent. That's all. Now, isn't that American business today? That's why I don't want to do it. I want to do conversations with my great-grandfather, who I never met. Now, my website is down. There's been hacking today, I think. They're claiming it's a server, but I can get on Drudge, I can get on Newsmax, I can get on USA Today, I can get Alex Jones. I can't get on michaelsavage.com. I believe it's been hacked and it's down. We'll find out by tomorrow. So it happens. It's not the worst thing on earth. WABC Mark, go ahead. Your comment is important. What is it, please?
Thank you. God bless you, Dr. Savage, for being an oasis in a sea of fake news. My grandfather's family was murdered, the entire family, by the Turkish Muslims, which, by the way, were the original ISIS in the Armenian genocide. They killed...
Tell the people how many millions of Armenians were slaughtered mercilessly, men, women, children, herded into churches, churches set on fire, and the Armenians burned to death. How many of your fellow Armenians were killed by Muslims?
Approximately 2 million Armenians, Greeks, and Assyrian Christians were murdered in death marches and apparently other means like burning to death. My great-grandfather would want me to speak out, well, as you are, for the truth and against injustices like unnecessary bombing of countries who are protecting their Christians and their citizens against Islamists. And
I read today, speaking about the bombing attack last Friday night, that General Mattis himself wanted to go to Congress for permission, or approval rather, to launch those missiles. Did you read that today?
Well, that goes into my...
Our own top general himself...
Yeah.
Was more liberal on this issue than some of the foaming-mouthed maniacs in radio who said that there's no necessary approval for bombing. You hear what it's come down to? How can you call yourself a conservative and say you don't need approval to go bomb a foreign country?
And that speaks to my last point, Dr. Savage. Speaking out as you do against false warmongers like Mr. Lindsey Graham, Hillary Clinton.
Oh, my God. Lindsey Graham, John McCain, Hillary Clinton, talk show hosts who make believe they're conservatives wrapped in the Constitution, and they call for bombing without a constitutional approval by the government. It's unbelievable to me.
And
I don't know how people put up with this.
Lastly, Dr. Savage, thank you. Speaking out against a deceitful, fake news media that are out of their minds. Well,
why do we assume that the fake news is only on the left? This is the part that's goading me to death. Do you assume only the people who are liberals are giving fake news?
No, I agree with you. There's fake news on both sides.
Good. Now, here's the question for the listener. What's real news? What's real news? Inside the frantic flight to pull doomed Southwest passenger back in through window. That would be real news. Hero in a cowboy hat. That would be real news. Pilot is a Navy pilot, a woman. That would be real news, correct?
Yes.
So certain things we know are real. The rest we have to discern for ourselves and try to sort and sift through all of the information, if we're even interested, and come to our own conclusions as to what is actually real news. It's becoming a new job. And it's a very hard job that's going to come to backfire on the conservative movement. This whole fake news idea is going to come to destroy the opinion business and the news business if it keeps up. Because the average person doesn't know what's real and what's fake, to be honest with you. You understand that? Well, anyway, that's a topic for another day. I am at the point of the first break, but I don't even want to go to it. I'm having a wonderful time on the radio talking with you today. KSFO Melissa, line 3. Where are you calling from?
Chicago.
Go ahead, Melissa. What's on your mind?
Well, Michael, I just wanted to let you know that you've been reaching me for a couple years. I do own God, Faith, and Reason, and God told me to call you today because I can't believe what's going on, everything that's going on in the world. It's really scary. My father was in the syndicate in Chicago. His mom was doing tricks with her father and siblings in brothels when she was younger than 8 years old. So when I'm sitting here in the suburbs of Chicago now, not that I'm 35, I grew up in Chicago high school, and I was attacked a lot and didn't really realize it was because I was white, as weird as that sounds.
Well, wait, your father was in the syndicate. He couldn't protect you? He was a gangster?
Oh, my father. He ended up moving to Wisconsin.
So he abandoned you, his poor daughter, and left you to the mobs.
He didn't. My mom was a single drunk mother. My dad did what he could, and I'm very proud of how he handled the situation.
Yeah, but the mythology is that mob guys protect their children. Where was your father?
Oh, he was around, but my mom left a couple different times and hid, and he had to find me.
Is he still alive?
He is, and him and I talked about God a lot. I was recently baptized. So
does he feel bad for what he did in the world that he lived in?
Absolutely. He's in a lot of pain physically, and he told me one time that he thought maybe it was because that God was punishing him for his past doings. And I said, well,
yeah, well, that's a very important subject for another time, which is the connection between mind and body and how illnesses are a manifestation, in some cases, of the mind and of the soul. Yeah. The psychosomatic connection between illness and, let us say, the mind and the soul, and how some of us have gone awry, we're constant liars, we wind up with quadruple bypass. It doesn't mean that everyone with a quadruple bypass is a liar, but in some cases, when you lie on a regular basis, it eats your heart out. Do you know that? Because you know you're lying?
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean, now don't get me wrong, there are probably some very straight, true people who've had quadruple bypasses. But I'm using that as an example of psychosomatic illness. And there's got to be a mental relationship between bodily ailments and the soul and the mind of the person experiencing them. For example, if I get a migraine headache, what is it related to? Well, it could be related to a lot of things. I could have eaten sugar. I'm allergic to sugar. It could have been because I've just focused too much on the tabloid news and it's burning my eye out, right? There's a lot of things that could explain it. Mm-hmm. Now, there are gurus who believe that we can live almost eternally, even on this earth, to a very, very old age, if we purify our minds and purify our hearts. You know that, correct?
Yep, I absolutely.
I'm going to move on because I don't want to go down that road, but you know, maybe I should go down that road another day, which is get some of these people on, whether they be from other societies or this one. Or there are very few in this society I trust who have this idea of living to the ripe old age without much illness, if you're a truthful person, that the truth actually shall set us free. Now, of course, there's a limit to that idea when you consider that Mozart, one of the greatest composers in the world, lived to only 35. I mean, I doubt that he died at 35 because he was a bad guy. So I'll be back in a minute to discuss these philosophical questions right here on the Savage Nation.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. April 18th, 2018.
We have very little time on the Savage Nation right now. I can read you all the horrible tabloid news of the world, as can anyone else. A chimpanzee could probably do it with a voice simulator. Instead, we're going to talk about more important things, and we're going to Richard on WABC in New York. Richard, welcome back to the program.
Hello, Michael. Yes, and I really wasn't going to call you today, but I couldn't help myself. My great-grandfather from Bialystok, you woke him up. He told me to call you, okay?
Oh, let me stop right here. Richard is a man who called the show 2 weeks ago, identifying himself as a psychic who made certain predictions for me, and many people listened to it and took notes and have incorporated some of your advice into their lives. Richard, what do you have to say today that is new?
I'm going to make it very succinct. Look, first of all, I did say to you, I'm not talking to you as a psychic or an intuitive. I'm talking to you as a spiritual advisor. You are going through this transition. You are wrestling with your brain. Your brain is so profoundly intelligent. You're a genius, but unfortunately you think that you're going to answer your questions with your brain. It's not going to work. You've got to let it go and start to operate from your spirit. I'm going to make it very succinct. Here's the message, Michael. Look, you asked me for specifics. Here's the specifics. You've been trying to get into the inner circle of these people, the Sean Hannity, Donald Trump. These are people that are not interested in your truth. They don't relate to truth. That's not what they're about. They are illegal aliens when it comes to being human beings, okay? That's all I want to say about that.
Well, I wouldn't agree with you on your broad statement like that, because I've seen some great work done even by the man that you don't like, Donald Trump.
Oh, no.
I can't say that about the talk show host, because I've only been on the receiving end of his deceit. So I can't even comment on him. I used to think he was what he presented himself as being until I discovered otherwise. But that's irrelevant. What's the big story here?
The big story is that you're going to have an ability to attract, like the man that just called you from the Supreme Court. There are millions of people out there, and many of them are very powerful that need your leadership, and you're going to have an opportunity to attract the allies that are really true allies, and you will be a leader, not somebody who's trying to get in the door to find a way to change things within the system. You actually have the power to really change the world. And I mean that from a standpoint of very practically with your ability to communicate and the...
But, Richard, I must say to you, at my birthday party a year ago, my son got up and said, who would have known that my father, with a talk show host, changed the world by helping elect, in a big way, Donald Trump. He actually said, who would have thought that my father would have helped elect the next president of the United States, Donald Trump? And my son is not known for hyperbole. He's a very pragmatic man. So it's already been done in some ways, Richard. So what's next?
Next is a spiritual path that will...
Hold on. We're going to come back. I know many of you are fascinated by Richard, as am I, right here on the Savage Nation. Don't fool yourself. You want to hear this. I know that.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE.
That's my cue. 34 minutes after the hour, you're listening to the Savage Nation, going where others not only don't dare to go, but can't go. And we're speaking with Richard on WABC, an avowed psychic. Richard, welcome back to the program. So, to summarize, Richard, what is your new prognosis?
The prognosis for Michael Savage is that you are really entering a whole new, I would say, a universe for yourself. You have done tremendous things with both your mind and with your tsuris and with your knowledge and with your intuition. Now you really need to be above what I consider the minutia of today's world, because it's so polluted, if you will, and it really has no truth to it. And you are really a truth-sayer, and a truth-sayer on all levels, and you're going to have the opportunity now to use all the things that you've gathered in your search for meaning in life, which is your knowledge of plants and your knowledge of people, your love of animals, your whole gathering of what I would consider life's fascinating facts and so on. And the reality, because most of you is rooted in very real things, even though you constantly relate to what I consider very superficial things and see how absurd they are. But you have to be above it now, because I told you this, and I don't want to sound mystical, but your real purpose in life is about to appear. And you're going to have the opportunity to use all these things you've gathered.
But Richard, let me. What could this real purpose be? I'm reaching millions of people through my broadcast, and through my writings. What could the real purpose be?
Don't you hear your listeners? They're saying, Michael, we need to find the truth in our spirits and in our lives.
So what is it? I should get a robe and go to a stadium and make believe I'm a fake preacher, a false prophet?
No. You don't have to do anything that's been done before. You're going to have the opportunity. People will want to support you that are real truth people that need to, you don't realize it, but there are millions and millions of people out there that really are powerfully rooted in truth, but they're lost. They're really lost, and I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but you happen to be the one that is a light for them.
All right, so let's say that there's truth in what you say. How would you suggest I reach these millions of people if I'm not reaching them now?
You're asking for a reasonable answer. I'll give you the most reasonable answer I can give. Michael, trust the next couple of months. Let them happen. Even in the media, even in the station you're at now that is trying to, quote, change your agenda or your position, call it. There are people, just as you're going to be things are going to actually disappear in your life that you have been doing or thinking, and you're going to have new things appearing in new people. I'm one of those people, by the way, but I'm not saying I'll be part of your future.
Well, I'm on the way to Washington on Sunday for a 3 or 4 day quick visit with some of the most powerful people on the planet. Do you think this, in your mind, is going to be a game changer?
I do. I think everything you do now is a game changer. Everything you're doing now is going to lead you to a new path for your creativity, your spiritual...
I mean, just this morning I was invited to have lunch in the congressional dining room, the Senate dining room. I was invited to go behind the scenes to see certain aircraft that are being restored that no one's ever seen, including the Apollo 11 space capsule. These are things that are interesting to me. How is that going to change anything, though?
Can you let your logic go? I know it's very difficult. You want?
No. If I let my logic go, I'll sound like everybody else in the media.
Stop the logic. You're so intelligent, and you let it get in the way. But it's not going to disappear. Your logic and your curiosity is what you're all about.
Well, but Richard, I started this show by saying I received a photograph of a great-grandfather who I had never met on Saturday, and I felt that he was talking to me. And it's already altered my reality in the sense that I asked my audience today, what would my great-great-grandfather want for me to talk about today to millions of people? Don't you think that's a game changer?
What did I say?
Don't you think that's a game changer?
Grandfather from Bialystok, and here's what he said to me. He said, Michael, oy vey, let yourself live. Stop trying to think.
But those are generic New Age statements.
No, they're not
Richard.
New Age statements. They're the basis of what life is. And life has all the answers, and you have...
Yeah, well, I go with the flow. I'm supposed to walk around Berkeley blowing bubbles with a bubble machine?
No, listen to me for a minute. Just for 1 minute. I know this is radio and you've got time constraints, but look, you have the curiosity and the let's put it this way, the wisdom of a child. You are really a pure spirit. You really are, and that's not metaphysical. That spirit and that child in you has tremendous potential for creativity in a practical way. You're a great combination of logic and feeling. Very few people have both, and you are a great public person who's really very private, which is ridiculous. You're so private, and yet you're the most public person in the world. I know it's very...
So what do you want me to do, walk around with a camera showing everyone my private life?
You don't have to do anything. All you have to do, Mike, is be available for what's going to show up in your life. Just like...
All right, so you're saying what's coming in your psychic mind, I don't even have to wait for, it's already there.
Totally. Your tomorrow, as I said before, is looking for you. It's in search of you.
It's already found me. The next day was a new tomorrow. Then this picture came on Saturday. So already tomorrow has found me, Richard.
That's right. Your grandfather found you. I told you.
He's not even he's my great-grandfather who died in 1867 or something.
He came visiting you. And you said, I don't know. He came to me and he's...
That's right. He started talking to me and I started talking to him.
Well,
and he said to me, what do you do, Michael, what do you do, he said to me in a foreign language. And I answered him in a foreign language. And I said to him in a foreign language, I write books and I speak on the radio. And he said to me, what is a radio? And I explained it to him. And then he said to me, what do you say on this radio to so many people? And that's the whole purpose of today's show, which is that so much of the media is tabloid, nitpicking, attacking each other, attacking the other party. I am so incapable of doing that anymore, Richard, that I decided to take the show into another dimension. Whether my audience wants to go there, given what they are used to being fed, is a big question, Richard.
They don't want to be fed things that don't have solutions for them. Give them solutions, not problems to think about. You just said something very meaningful, that on both sides, the news is fake, that the world is living in a fake reality. You cannot fight their fake reality. I told you, they're frightened of you, Michael, because you are the real deal. I know that. I would never call you today. I have a life. I have things I got to be doing.
I know you're a very successful investment advisor, amongst other things. I have spoken to you off the air. I never thought you'd call today, but I figured maybe you would, and I thought it's interesting because a lot of people like your insights. They're probably going to ask you, though, what do you mean by tomorrow? What's supposed to happen tomorrow that's going to lead me to this new awareness within myself and be able to lead, let's say, so many other people in the world that I'm not currently speaking to?
Well, you made a very just interesting statement. I don't know if you heard yourself say it. What's supposed to happen? Did you hear yourself say that?
So what's the answer?
What's supposed to happen is that Michael Savage, who has had many lives, in my opinion, but that's another matter, is about to, his purpose in life, you remember, God, faith, and reason, his reason for being here is about to be revealed even to Michael, much to his amazement, in a new direction, a new way of dealing with life. And by the way, you don't need to be successful anymore. You are successful. We know that. You don't need money. We know you have money. We know that there are no awards. I mean, it's nice to get acknowledged, but you really are looking for something that is much more meaningful and much more, not personal, but much more profound in why you're here. And it's about to be answered. I think you're very lucky, but your birth is a little painful. I would never be on.
Well, let's leave it at that, because I hear you, and I'm resonating with what you're saying, and I have a feeling that after this trip to Washington, D.C. next week, things will be revealed to me that are currently not, let us say, visible.
I'm going to second your thought.
Hold on, Richard. I know you don't want to go away, and I don't want you to leave. Folks, I hope you're enjoying this. I hope you don't think it's too narcissistic and self-serving. But I will be the last person on earth to sit here and talk about Comey or Mueller or about Richard Cohen, the lawyer. Not one more second will I devote to that. It is like rolling in mud and inhaling some of the mud into your nostrils. I'll be back in a minute. Stay here, Richard.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
We met in a dream. You walked by my side.
We go back to the program. I got to tell you about the news of another big data breach. It was recently reported that hackers stole information from more than 5 million credit and debit cards used for in-store purchases at Saks Fifth Avenue, Saks off Fifth, and Lord & Taylor stores. Now, some of the card information was put up for sale on the dark web as soon as the breach went viral. There are so many threats in today's connected world, and it just takes one weak link for criminals to get in. Good thing new LifeLock Identity Theft Protection adds the power of Norton Security to help protect you against threats to your own identity and your devices that you can't easily see or fix on your own. The good news is that if you have a problem, they have agents who work to fix it. No one can stop every cyber threat. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions. But new LifeLock with Norton Security is able to uncover threats you might otherwise miss. Please, for your own sake, go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock. Use promo code SAVAGE for an additional 10% off your first year. 1-800-LifeLock, code SAVAGE for an additional 10% off. Richard on WABC, coming back to you if you're still there.
I am still here.
So what did you want to conclude with?
Well, I want to conclude with the fact that I think you really understand what I've been telling you. I think your skepticism is there, but I want to tell you now, the fact of you going to the White House and this meeting is very significant, very significant. It shows something that is happening, that you are kind of moving into a new area, and people are taking you much more seriously. They have to. They're very afraid of you over there, but they need to take you seriously, and they know it. Now,
what do they got to fear of me?
What do they have to fear, Michael? Not only do you have a huge audience, but people are beginning to realize that that they are so far removed from the truth, and that the people are not responding anymore. They see through what's going on, and it's so deadly. We're heading into a disaster as a species, as a planet. We are really heading into a disaster, and people are.
One of the things I'm not going to yield on is the animal protections that I so desperately tried to discuss with this administration, and was assured was having good resonance within, and only to wake up and find out the next day it had no influence whatsoever.
Let's take it as a parable for a minute, just 1 second, okay? Yes, the connection with animals. You mentioned the gorilla the other day. Yes, that incredibly tender thing that you described, the mother.
Yes, the mother gorilla gives birth to this little baby and shows it more affection than most women in the Western world.
And you said, oh my God, this was incredibly moving because it was real. It was plugged into what life is all about, nature. It was plugged into the meaning of life, much more profound than anything that's happening in our world, for the most part, currently. And the graphic example, and you went with your heart, your soul, and your spirit, and with the idea that these people would care and that they really want life to prosper. And you said, oh, we've got to save life, we've got to save values, we've got to save our morality, our spiritual meaning. And they said, oh my God, get out of our lives. And they put it in your face, not personally, but they gave you an indication that they really cared. And the next day, literally slapped you in the face. Now, if you don't need a more graphic example of the fact that they're terrified of your truth and that they don't have any, they can't relate to the truth. It's an enemy of theirs. I mean, I'm not being very insightful in saying this. The society has become a truthless and morally corrupt society. You are a leader. You can change the world now, Michael. I'm telling you now. You can literally look. Our founding fathers are looking.
If I can save this country from the hordes of criminals that are being brought in by Jerry Brown under the guise of compassion and humanitarianism, that would be a very big save, wouldn't it, Richard?
Say that last statement again.
If I can save this nation from the hordes of criminals that are being brought in under the guise of humanitarianism by Governor Brown and others, that would be a huge save, wouldn't it be, Richard?
The word huge does not apply. You would weep for all of us, tears of joy and tears of compassion and tears of sadness. All of us. Let
me ask you one, Richard. You claim to be a man who is a seer.
I am.
And a psychic. Okay, I'm not judging. You said I've led many lives. Do you mean in this world, in this form?
You have led many lives before, Michael. This is, I could go into your past.
But do you mean many lives in this carnation? In this carnation?
To you.
I'm asking you a question, though. Many lives in this carnation?
No. Other carnations as well. Definitely.
Well, how many times have I said on this show that I'm like a Steppenwolf who's walked through many planes at many times?
Look, time is...
Look, I could get into this, but it'll blow off most of the audience that's not used to it, Richard. You got to understand, they are so used to other stuff that they think this is not... that it's not real. They think it's crazy. They're not used to it. They're not ready for it. They don't want to hear it. They're so used to the banjos with one string that's hardly attached to the banjo that when they hear a Stradivarius, they run like from a fire.
You heard it, Michael. What can I say? You know it.
Please don't try to be a Stradivarius on talk radio because the audience won't listen to you. They'd rather go listen to the sound of a hammer hitting a drywall. Richard, stay on the line. I'm going to talk with you again a little bit, maybe another time, rather. I thank you very much for your interest in the show and in the future of the show. The rest of you who are listening to the show may want to be interested or may be interested only in the profane. And that's okay. That's what you're used to. You're fed the profane every day. And there's plenty of profane to talk about. You can find it on any internet site. You can find it in the movies. You can find it almost everywhere you turn because profanity sells.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
Come fly with me, let's fly away. If you
This is Michael Savage filling in for the other Michael Savage in hour number 3 of the Savage Nation. We're not going to talk about that hooey stuff about other dimensions. It's going to be like an ordinary talk show host now. We'll talk about the news, views that other people talk about. We'll say lock her up. We will say put her in jail. We'll say Mueller no good. We'll say fire Mueller. We'll say Comey's a phony. Not. No, we're going to go back to what we were talking about in the last couple of hours because I've had it with the other stuff. I mean, I got to confess to you that there's a limit to how much I can invest of my inheritance, to put it that way. You don't actually think that your life is your inheritance. Your greatest inheritance is your health and your life. It's hard to understand that because we're so focused, as we have to be on money. I get it. It's easy to say not to focus on it if you're not struggling for finances right now. But I would hope that sometimes you could put aside the ordinary and try to go into another time zone with me on the Savage Nation. A time zone of the soul that maybe you get into on your own, maybe you don't. There's no saying I can't go there with you. So in the last couple of hours, I told you about my getting a picture of a great-grandfather I had never met who died very young in the old country, and it came to me only on Saturday from a distant relative I didn't even know existed who's doing the genealogy of the family, and I've been having conversations with him since then. Now, they're imaginary conversations. I'm not like Jimmy Carter. My great-grandfather was not in the room with me, not walking around complaining about the weather or anything like that. I'm not Jimmy Carter. I'm talking about my imaginary conversations. Do you understand the difference? But in doing so, in talking with, tapping into my ancestry, it helps me understand my actual place in the world right now. And so I said to you, what would my great-grandfather want for me to talk about today to millions of people? Because I'm asking you to ask yourself the same question. Let's say you're a beaten-up person somewhere in America who can't get out of your own way. You screwed up your whole life. No matter what you've done, it's been wrong. Things always went wrong for you. You just keep drilling empty holes in the ground and you can't find any oil. And you feel lost and you feel lonely and you feel like everyone's lying to you and everyone's deceiving you. And you despise politicians because you feel every one of them lies to you. I'll ask you the same question. What would your great-grandparents want for you to do right now to get out of that position that you are in? So let's turn it over to some of the callers. You on WABC line 6. Go ahead, please.
Well, I'm one of your fans who finds this kind of rumination and this kind of reflection the reason that I listen to you. You can hear that mind-banging, lock her up, blah, 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 all day long, wherever you want to find it. But I would rather sit and listen to Dr. Savage tell me about life in Brooklyn before the war, the struggles of his father and his family.
Well, actually, I was born in the Bronx. I don't know Brooklyn that well, but okay, it's similar. It's generic. Yeah. And when you say before, which war, though? What war are we talking about?
Well, I mean, when I sat by my grandmother who came from Ireland in 1912 and who I have the manifest from her ship with her signature on it at Ellis Island.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Age 18 with 5 British pounds in her pocket. She went to Grand Central from Ellis Island, went to Albany, New York, and was downstairs in the upstairs-downstairs version of the wealthy attorney's house, Albany. And 15 years later, she owned a little hotel in the Catskills, and the story...
Wow. Oh, so she's really the pioneer in the family, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to sit and listen to her tales and the warmth and the love that was in that neighborhood down on 149th and Union Avenue in the South, and nobody locked their doors. Mrs. Parisi next door made the raviolis. Grandma thought tomato sauce was poison. Mr. Green
to the Irish tomato sauce was poison. I can see that.
Yeah, and
well, actually, tomato was considered poisonous until I think the 16th century.
Really, the love potion, and and it was the three eyes: the Irish, the Italians, and the Israelites, and they kicked each other in the shins all day, and then they got along and intermarried, no less. It was a wonderful world.
Oh yeah, I remember that story, A.B.'s Irish Rose. It was a beautiful story about various different ethnic groups falling in love and coming together. I think it still happens in America, though, don't you?
Of course, we've added Mexican into my family blood, and we've added Filipino into my brother's family blood. He's his.
And I'm sure that when you look at the children of those people, you see a continuation of your own family lineage. You don't see it as separate, do you?
Oh no, not in the least. And we're proud of it. And this is America. And listening to
it is. I understand that, and it's lost on the media. The media doesn't want us to know that most Americans are actually accepting of, if you want to put it in a crude sense, interracial families. But it's not what you're talking about. You're talking about something different than interracial. You're talking about the integration of America rather than the separation of America, which apparently the media doesn't want to talk about because it doesn't sell newspapers and it doesn't create news flashes. People don't want to hear about the integration that's gone on, that is going on, where people do get along, do they?
Absolutely, and mathematics.
So you like when I go into these philosophical modalities, okay? I appreciate that. So at the end of this conversation between us, what would you say my great-grandfather, who I never met, would want me to talk about, and every day thereafter? What is it that you think he would want me to talk about?
I have to bring it back to the political, and I have to bring it back to the beloved Lincoln's famous line that we have to restore the mystic chords of memory from every patriot grave to every hearth and heart in the country. And last night I was at a Lincoln presentation by an eminent scholar at Rutgers University, and it was about Lincoln's use of the Bible in his arguments against slavery. And the children, all lovely kids and scholars, had no idea what he was talking about. And at one point he said, talking about Lincoln's ideology, the love of America, he said, well, who here loves the country? I was the one who put my hand up. And it's mission, Doc. We have to recreate that love that, I just lost my...
Here's the problem. I'll give you one of the reasons that's such a difficult problem. People have it too easy in this country. When 50% of the population pays no taxes, why would they love a nation that gives them everything for nothing? They have such self-contempt because of what they're doing that they project their contempt onto the nation and say, what a stupid nation that would give me money for doing nothing. Then you got waves of immigrants who come in, who spit on the flag, burn the flag, abuse the Medicare system. I can go down the list. Why would they love a nation that is so stupid as to fall for their lie about wanting asylum here to get away from oppression when they came here only to live off the fat of the land? And so the only way we're going to ever get this country back again, I'm sorry to tell you, is through hard times. I know it's counterintuitive, but hard times will actually make more people love this country rather than fewer. I'm going to leave it at that, and I want people to digest that for a while. It's easy times that make people say, what do I need to love America for? It's a stupid, flabby, fat nation. Wait until the hard times come, and you'll see that what I'm saying to you turns out to be true. The phone number here is 855-400-7282. Back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
I can't see anyone but you.
I'm not going to talk about the 59 Plymouth Fury and the rollover. I am going to talk about what you want to talk about. So let's go to Bob on KSFO line 7. Bob, what's on your mind?
Hi, Dr. Savage. It's an honor to speak with you. I've been listening to you since you started, probably some 20 years ago. About the same time I lost my father. You are my voice of reason. You're the closest thing I have to somebody that I can, confide in by what you say on the radio. So I wanted to tell you today that whatever direction you take your show, I am in, because I travel a lot for business. I'm in the car a lot. I listen to lots of news programs. And I really don't ever even formulate my own opinion until I've heard what you have to say. But whatever.
So, okay, no, that's very, very, very gratifying. Give me one topic on which you would like my opinion, one news topic.
Well, one news topic would be, I'm a conservative. I'm the hated one. I'm white, Caucasian, son of immigrants from Italy, Catholic, and heterosexual. So I don't know where else to really go.
Oh, you got 6 strikes against you. I'm sure that if Jerry Brown could, he would have you arrested just for those reasons alone.
Exactly right.
Or he may even deport you to Italy, because you're of no value to him. You can see right through him.
Exactly right.
Maybe that'll make you feel better. Maybe that'll make you feel better at the next fill-up. Thanks for calling, Bob. Martin online, line 8. Go ahead. You're up on the Savage Nation.
Hi, Michael. I have a PhD and a similar background to you. Parents and grandparents from Poland, grew up in New York in poverty, now living in South Florida. But having a PhD, I find listening to your show the only place where I'm getting intellectual stimulation, because even though I work around mostly PhDs, the things that are talked about don't even compare to what you touch on the show. I only have one friend who has a doctorate from Harvard that even gives half the intellectual stimulation that I'm striving for. So I want to tell you just by
That's very nice to hear. The problem is how many people like you are there in America today, and how many of you listen to AM radio? I would say that most people with higher degrees sneer at talk radio, and when they tune into any talk radio show that someone may have told them about, they have reason to sneer at talk radio. That's the problem. And so they never come back. They don't really know the depth that is available to them in this medium, but it can be as deep as the person who is presenting that program.
Yes, and Michael, I'm not jealous of your money or success or wealth. Do you know what actually made me kind of jealous? That picture you posted with a group of men you had dinner with on your birthday. I was like, dang, to be in the middle of that and be in the conversation.
Well, because most of us don't have any friends that we can even call up for a dinner. That's the sad truth. Most of us are alone. It's not because we're bad people, and we wonder, whatever happened to friendship in America? Isn't that really what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
No. This is a real issue of friendship. Where is real friendship in this country? Can it even exist when you have such competing interests and competing loyalties? That's an interesting question. I don't know that there's an immediate answer for it, but people have traditionally been drawn together by common interests. They're drawn together first by familial ties, then by ties of profession or of business, and then by ties of interest. And so sporting events, for example. So if you're looking for friends, and many of us gave up on it a long time ago, you can still find them, by the way, at almost any age. That's my opinion. I don't want to go down that road, but I'm honored that you listen to the show and you enjoy it so much. Yes, the issue of being alone in America, the sense of aloneness, the sense of where is my birthday? Where are my friends at my party? Why don't I have anyone to invite? What happened to my life? I'm not a bad person. Many people feel that way. Or the issue of stimulation, mental stimulation, if they have a mind that still operates. Where is it? Is it on television? Yeah, I find it on TV, by the way. If I turn television on at night and I watch up on the cable channel, I never watch the news because I find it, I can't watch it. What am I going to see that I haven't heard 100 times? If you turn on let's say even Fox News, I don't want to pick them out, but pick CNN. Let's bash CNN. So from the morning till the night, the same topics are discussed by different hosts. Each hour, another face comes up and talks about the same problems, the same issues from their point of view, and gives you the same opinions in their voice. It's the same in talk radio. From morning till night, the same thing. On our side, it's lock her up and this and that. And so, okay, so you get a person like me who's a little different, and I want to take you to different places, because otherwise it becomes too stagnant for me to do it. Do you understand that? And I'm honored that I have this medium, this phenomenal medium called talk radio, to talk about other topics other than lock her up or Mueller's no good or Comey's a faker. I don't want to do it, so I don't do it. So I talked to you today about a picture I got of a great-grandfather that I never met. I never met him. I've been almost functioning as though I was born unto myself, as though I was born yesterday by myself, of myself, and for myself. In that sense, I've been the average American. We all think that we're going to live forever. Don't we? Don't we all go through our lives thinking that there was no yesterday, that we don't descend from anyone, that we are it, that the whole world began when we were born and the whole world ends when we leave, and yet we don't even want to accept that we ever will leave? Isn't that the mindset of the average American, that we are immortal? Isn't that what we're taught from childhood, that we're special, that we're all so special, so unique, that nobody on the planet's ever been like us? Isn't that in our mother's milk? You go to a Little League game and you see a poor kid. Maybe he's a terrible ball player. Not every kid likes to play ball. The kid swings and misses. The father says, "Good job, Johnny," when Johnny knows he wasn't doing a good job. Better to say, "Johnny, try again next time. Here's how you should hit the ball." You can't tell him he's doing a good job every time he tries. You can't say it's a good job just for trying. So what I'm getting at is, I don't think it creates a whole person to tell that person that no matter what they do is special. And then you wind up with the freak show of the media, where you have these very, very ugly girls making themselves skinny and then getting surgery to make themselves big in certain areas. And there's apparently an unlimited audience for these distorted images of women. Apparently there's unlimited numbers of fools who actually buy the products that these fakers wear. That's the world we live in, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Hey, welcome back. Today we're talking about really, really amazing stuff. Nikki Haley. Well, you may not know who she is. She's the loudmouth warmonger who's our ambassador to the UN. It turns out her deputy ambassador led the Never Trump movement, and that he launched Zuckerberg's Open Borders group. You talk about the enemy within. Huh? If that's not enough for you, Governor Cuomo in New York, you know that guy. He just announced an executive order to allow parolees the right to vote in New York after meeting with none other than the gutter rat, Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton came out of the meeting with the wonderful governor and said, "We got one executive order, and it's not even lunchtime yet," boasted Sharpton. "Who knows? We may have a presidential candidate. You all stay tuned." Isn't that great to see that this gutter rat, Al Sharpton, is now trying to promote Cuomo for the presidency? Unbelievable to me. If that's not enough for you to show you how vile the left has become, an Arab professor at Fresno State calls Barbara Bush an amazing racist. Oh, really? And she boasted and says, "I make $100,000 a year. I'm a tenured professor, and I'm a Muslim American, and I will never be fired." Isn't that wonderful to see who Jerry Brown lets teach in the California universities? Once great universities, now infested with human haters like this. Wait, it gets even better. It gets even better. And more of it can be found on michaelsavage.com. Dreamers are among our best and brightest, says the Koch brothers, to push amnesty with a 7-figure ad campaign. That means every dreamer, including members of MS-13, are now our best and brightest. What you don't know about the Koch brothers is that they own housing authorities which house, feed, clothe, and take care of illegal aliens. You didn't know that. They make a fortune on these businesses. So don't assume there's anything between the left and the right when it comes to money. On Fox News, Judge Napolitano, who's always been fair and balanced as far as I could tell, today he attacked Hannity over Cohen. He said he can't have it both ways. Well, I'm glad to see that there's still fair and balanced reporting on Fox News. There are many other stories today on michaelsavage.com. A Jewish teen belt whipped and abused on Berlin Street, a Jewish religious teenager. A Jewish teen was belt whipped and abused on a Berlin street by a Muslim attacker. This is what's going to happen in America unless immigration is controlled and huge numbers of vile racists are deported. Oh, yes, one other thing. Yesterday we talked about the homeless. A panhandler stabbed a patron with a steak knife inside a New York City restaurant. I opened up the website this morning for the news, 5 in the morning. Ruthless Miguel Tarul Cuba is on the Drudge Report. So I said, okay, poor Cuban people. They suffered through the mafia state of the Castro brothers for all of these years. Now the next one's coming along, Miguel now, to again keep the Cuban people locked up like prisoners in a fortress. And the left can't get enough of these prisoners. That's what they want for you here. That's what Jerry Brown wants. That's what Al Sharpton wants. Ruthless Miguel Tarul Cuba. They don't even have the internet there. Maybe you can go gather sugarcane with the Compaseros, you morons on the left. In the 60s, they sent their daughters there to go collect sugar. Morons. They loved Uncle Fidel. I am currently infatuated by Mozart's horn concerts, his horn concertos, especially that played by the Vienna Philharmonic by Karl Boehm. The horn concerts, they do something to me. They move me. Music is from another dimension, another universe. The human soul. I'm not going to now say, therefore, we have no music in America, because we still have great musicians in America. As you know, I love rock and roll music sometimes. Sometimes I like heavy metal music. But you see, music is in a different realm of what we're normally used to, feeling. And what I'm getting at is talk radio can also take us to those dimensions. Unfortunately, many people are under the false impression that it has to be a banjo with one broken string that is played every day, all day long, repeating the same stories with different voices. Talk radio does not have to be limited to a one-string, one-note, or two-note concert every day, day in and day out, until the mind numbs and goes dead. You can create whole symphonies on talk radio, symphonies of thought, symphonies of ideas, symphonies of emotion. Am I reaching you out there, yes or no? Am I off in my own world again? If I am, forgive me, because this is the world I'm in today. And so I'm asking you again, if I said to you, what would my great-grandfather, who I never met, want for me to talk about today to millions of people? Because, you know, all through my life, even as a kid, I would do certain things and I would really feel the ancestors looking at me. And I would dismiss it, saying, they're not real. It doesn't matter what that old person thought. And I would go on and be the ordinary guy that, you know, we all are. But I don't know, maybe as I've gotten on in life, I come to realize that maybe it's not so imaginary. After all, they did exist for myself and for you. And maybe we suppress these ideas because we're not living in a world that respects or even recognizes that we come from somebody. Think about that. When have you last seen a movie produced by Katzenberg, Ratzenberg, and Matzenberg that extolled the wisdom of the aged? Tell me when. Instead, they extolled the wisdom of idiots in high school. The wisdom of morons who know nothing. They're supposed to lead you now. This is right out of Nazi Germany, where the young Hitler youth turned in their parents who were not sufficiently loyal to the Nazi party. That's where we're going in America today. So to look to the young people. I just love all the leftists. Look at the young people. What the hell do they have to teach us, you idiots, you? Nothing. That's why they're called young. They learned from the old. So we can just talk about other stuff if you want. The San Francisco horror stories. I'm glad to talk about that, since I started the ball rolling on the awareness of America. Now it's cutting into their money. Maybe they'll do something about it. Do you know how many cars were broken into? There are streets filled with glass. They break into cars in broad daylight. They shoot up drugs in broad daylight. They defecate in front of your face in broad daylight. How is that even possible? Why are the police not allowed to do anything? Why have the homeless bums become sacred cows? If a human being descends to the level of criminality, why are they a sacred cow? Why? Why? Progressivism. It's a mental disorder. People cannot park their cars in the streets. Do you know how much money they spend every year on homeless bums? And yet the crime goes up? Cardboard cartons with bums in them in the front of expensive stores that merchants are spending a fortune for the rent, and you got a filthy bum in their doorway? He can't do anything or he'll get arrested for doing it? It's a very dangerous city. It's not just dirty. Very dangerous city. I told you that. It's supposed to be one of the greatest cities on earth, and look what it's become. It's always been liberal. I understand that. I mean, I moved here many years ago. It was always a beautiful liberal city. People left you alone by and large. But then what happened was the drugs took over, and the progressivism reached a tipping point of insanity where anything goes and everything's accepted except conservative viewpoints. Anyone who loves America is considered a criminal. And then they made it a sanctuary city, not only for illegal alien drug dealers and other criminals, but a sanctuary city for every nutcase in the history of the world gravitating here to the welfare state, not only of San Francisco, but of California itself. It is like a magnet for rodents. And if you put cheese out, are you going to get more rodents or less rodents? More or less. You can't put two and two together. You have to have a conference now on how to get rid of the feces and the needles. Clean up San Francisco streets, tourist industry pleads. You have no idea what this city has become in the last number of years since the progressive one-party system took over the state and the city. You have no idea what it's become under Pelosi's iron boot. You have no idea what it's come under Feinstein's iron skirts. You have no idea unless you've lived here. Do you know how many cars were broken into last year? You don't know, do you? It's swept under the rug. The dirty needles, the garbage, people injecting themselves with heroin and other drugs in broad daylight, 10 camps, human feces in the streets, mentally incompetent, dangerous thugs called homeless, running after you in the streets, attacking women, attacking men, attacking children, and the police cannot do a damn thing. So the head of the tourist industry, Mr. D'Alessandro, said, we can't be quiet anymore. We've become complacent. Well, I'm really glad to hear that he's come down off of his high horse and we can't be complacent more. But unless you actually come to this city and see what the filth is like and see the danger you are in, and you see how much is spent on so-called homeless services that is doing nothing but buying them drugs and alcohol, you will come to understand that progressivism and liberalism is as broke as the federal government. I understand that car manufacturers are considering making cars with double windows for San Francisco because if you come to the city, you will find a puddle of glass next to your car within 3 minutes of parking it somewhere, and so they're going to make a double window. 31,000 cars were reportedly broken into in 2017, and those are just the break-ins reported to police. 31,000 who were arrested for doing it. Next to zero, less than 2% of the crimes were resulted in an arrest. 31,000 cars broken into in San Francisco. That's reported. Never mind the people who didn't report it. And yet the liberals say, oh, well, I'm tolerant. I don't want to become one of those right-wing, you know what. They don't want to be right-wing. So they will have their cars broken into, slipping on human feces. That's the city I live in. And I still love it. It's beautiful. You just got to be very careful. Gorsuch, Supreme Liberal. Of course, it's put another way. The Supreme Court handed the Trump administration a loss on immigration, and Gorsuch was the tie-breaking vote, says the Associated Press. Newsmax puts it this way. Trump's Supreme Court picks sides with libs to stop deportation of criminal illegal alien. Oh, no, that's my headline. I have no way to tell you anything except the way I see it, so I'll say it the way I see it, which is, well, Gorsuch is a Supreme Liberal. Trump's Supreme Court pick sides with libs to stop deportation of criminal illegal alien. Well, I'm the only one in the media who warned you about this. Flashback, May 2017, Savage warned you about Gorsuch. I just want you to remember what I'm about to tell you. There are many poseurs in the media who pretend to be conservatives, others pretend to be liberals. I pretend to be nothing but what I am. I have been an independent from the day I began in 1994. I call him as I see him. And I warned you about Gorsuch. I was afraid of this guy. Why exactly, I'm not so sure. But I want you to listen very carefully from May 2017 on the Savage Nation. First of all, I'm going to make a prediction. Gorsuch is going to be another Roberts. Mark my words. They'll roll him. He's been rolled already. They've been brainwashing him inside. The witch, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and the others, they're breathing their foul vampire breath on his brain. He is going to be another liberal faker. As sure as watch. You watch and see if I'm wrong. 20 seconds. It's on michaelsavage.com. I put it up on Twitter. Flashback, May 2017. Savage warns about Gorsuch. So what do the geniuses have to say that? Wrong on this one, Michael. You know how many bots there are now on Twitter? It's full of bots. I mean, it's like machine-driven. Whatever I say now, they're saying I'm wrong. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Look at the other stories today. Arab professor at Fresno State calls Barbara Bush an amazing racist. Wait. This lowlife, this talentless lowlife Arab professor of English was granted an American Book Award last year for her story collection entitled He, Me, Muhammad Ali. And she curses Barbara Bush. She says, I will never be fired. I have tenure. And I make $100,000 a year, so go to hell, basically. She is pictured with a Palestinian scarf, often used to express solidarity with the Palestinian uprising against the Jews in Israel. So this is what teaches now on the campuses because of the tolerance that the liberals have brought us. But there are other stories. That's not the only one. We know the university professor who slammed Barbara Bush as an amazing racist will not be fired. Whereas if a conservative said something about Jerry Brown, they'd be fired. I'd never be hired. Forget it, fired. Then I read that Nikki Haley, you know who she is, the warmonger, ambassador to the UN. Nikki Haley, never liked her, never trusted her. Nikki Haley's deputy ambassador led the Never Trump movement and launched Zuckerberg's Open Borders group I read on Breitbart. I couldn't believe my eyes. You talk about the enemy within. This is inside Trump's inner circle. Nikki Haley, the bombardier of the Trump Air Force, next to Mustachio, who's the pilot of Trump's Air Force. Her deputy ambassador led the Never Trump movement and launched Zuckerberg's Open Borders group. Then I find something obscure for you. The search for truth in the rubble of Douma and one doctor's doubts over the chemical attack, and he's a Muslim doctor, a Syrian Muslim doctor, Dr. Assam Rahabani. And he says that the patients were overcome not by gas, but by oxygen starvation in the rubbish-filled tunnels and basements in which they lived on a night of wind and heavy shelling that stirred up a dust storm. Bad luck for you on the left to read this one. So I read all of this stuff, and I say to myself, do you think you really want to talk about this with the amount of time on earth that we're granted by God? This is what you want to waste your time talking about? So I put up the Arab professor at Fresno State calls Barbara Bush amazing racist. Bush can't be fired and makes $100K a year. I put it up on my Twitter to see what the people have to say. And one guy sends me an email, says, that's free speech, Savage. You make your living thanks to that protection, as does this professor. So I answered him. I said, faulty analogy. Kids have to sit and be graded by her. Prague listeners can just turn off my radio program. Obviously, you never learned to reason. So now you understand why having reason in the radio business is so important. Because I didn't have to yell, he didn't have to yell, he didn't have to curse me, I didn't have to curse him. I try to use reason. You understand? My great-grandfather would probably say, Michael, you can't fight what's going on in the world endlessly. The time clock. Listen to the metronome in your head, Michael. Is this how you want to spend the rest of your days? Is this how you want to spend the rest of your days? Talking about the slime of the earth, the Cuomos, the Browns, the criminals, the drug dealers, the illegal aliens. Do you want to talk about them the rest of your life? Is this what you were born for?
Savage.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.